The modern world constantly bombards us with polarised perspectives. A world where we judge first and think later. Where the headline matters but the reasons behind the actions don't. Where the 5-second clip takes precedence over the 25 years of history that led to that moment. Fiction is the opposite. We read and understand the background of a character before we see their actions.
Besides, you don't even know how to fly. What an idiot.
Their education, experiences and aspirations help us to understand why they acted how they did. In this video, I'll cover how the brain lights up as we read about the journey of a character, how fiction affects our ability to empathise, and why I find reading fiction more valuable than watching it. Let's get into this. When we kick a ball, run to get some chocolate, or pick up our coffee cup, the electrical signals of the brain are following our commands. My left hemisphere is telling my arm to lift up this cup and stopping me from dropping the coffee all over myself. There are different areas of the brain allocated to different tasks. This part controls movement, this part is heavily involved in speech, and you get the picture. A group of scientists put 9 people into MRI scanners and had them read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Just give me the stone!
Specifically, the part where Harry has his first flying lesson.
Welcome to your first flying lesson.
What they found was actually really cool, in my opinion. When you're reading about Harry flying his broom, the part of your brain that perceives other people's motion lights up. Similarly, when the characters are all interacting with one another, the brain region that analyses other people's intentions also lights up. From this, the scientists could predict what part of the book people were reading purely based on the MRI images that they could see. You may be asking, why on earth does this matter, Jack? And it's such a fair question. The reason that this resonated with me is that it's visualizing the benefits of fiction. It's showing us that our brains are acting in the same way as we read an action as it would if we actually did that action. We're creating our own internal simulation.
There is no fire, it was only a simulation.
What? In the self-help world, we think that the only way to gain value from a book is to get the quick lessons that they can teach us and then move on to the next one. This represents the tangible benefits through reading fiction, training a skill that we can often neglect, and that is empathy. Theory of mind is our ability to understand our own beliefs, intentions, and desires, but also that's not enough. It's our ability to understand that others can have beliefs, desires, and intentions that are different from our own. A psychologist at York University believes that the exposure to narrative fiction actually improves our ability to understand what other people are thinking, feeling, and doing, therefore improving our ability to empathise with them. As we saw earlier, we are quite literally putting ourselves in the shoes of the character. Books allow us to really get to know a character, to understand how they think, how they feel, and how those dictate their actions. An article on why fiction is good for you says this: when small children aged 4 to 6 were exposed to a large number of children's books and films, they had a significantly stronger ability to read the mental and emotional states of other people. The more absorbed the subjects were in the story, the more empathy they felt. And the more empathy they felt, the more likely those subjects were to help when the experimenter accidentally dropped a load of pens on the floor. You see, reading narrative fiction allows us to learn about the social world. Through fiction, we're able to understand why people act differently from ourselves, rather than judging them from afar without understanding their perspectives. I've emphasised reading in this video, but I'm sure many of you are thinking that we can just get all of these narrative benefits from TV, and you'd be correct. My bias towards reading is more of a personal one than driven by some research I've read. I've found that reading engages my imagination more, and This week I was listening to Ian McGilchrist. He is this psychiatrist that gives the most wise Gandalf vibes.
You shall not pass!
And it is almost like feeling that I've been possessed by a demon that's driving me to write.
He was on a podcast and he described 4 ways of knowing something: science, reason, imagination, and intuition. He believes that our scales have been tipped too far in favour of science and reason, neglecting the wisdom of imagination and intuition. You see, books build a world, but they're very open to interpretation. I've been reading a picture of Dorian Gray, and I'm sure you'll imagine Dorian Gray looking very differently to how I do. You see, reading is my way of re-engaging my imagination. My way of stepping away from the imagination deprivation that comes with technology. I'm trying to avoid the world of polarised perspectives, to think and understand before I judge, to ignore the clickbait headline and consider the reasons behind the actions. Ultimately, to empathise better, we need to understand more perspectives. And I guess in this video, what I'm trying to say is that maybe reading fiction might be the first step towards that. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe, leave your thoughts, feelings and feedback in the comments, and I will see you very soon.